Welcome to the Authentic Change Podcast. I'm Mike Horn, your host, and this podcast is for leaders and coaches who need and want fresh perspectives on what it means to live and to lead authentically. You're a leader who wants to make a difference, but sometimes you feel stuck. You know there's more to life and to leadership than what you're currently experiencing. It can be tough to figure out how to grow as a leader. You might be reading all the blogs and books, but it still feels like you're not making progress. You might even be feeling like you're doing everything wrong. On Authentic Change with Mike Horn, we interview experts who share their insights on how to live and lead authentically. Our guests are trendsetters in building great leaders, teams, and organizations. We provide fresh perspectives on what it means to live with purpose and authenticity. Welcome to this episode of the Authentic Change Podcast. Welcome to this episode of Authentic Change with Mike Horn. I am absolutely delighted to have in our virtual studio today, Jennifer Krippner. She is the Chief Experience Officer, and who wouldn't like that title, Chief Experience Officer for the Institute for Healthcare Excellence. She's also a recognized expert in the field of patient experience and human-centered care. She has over 25 years of experience in strategic planning, patient experience, physician development, and employee community engagement. And she's most passionate about building and nurturing connections and relationships. I want to go into some of Jennifer's earlier history too before allowing her to say a few words about herself. Prior to her lead role at the Institute for Healthcare Excellence, where she has this groovy title of Chief Experience Officer, she was the Director of Physician Development and Guest Public Relations at Maple Grove Hospital in Minnesota. While there, she led staff-driven patient experience advisory teams and developed projects that directly contributed to consistent top-tier performance in key patient and staff satisfaction results. She's a fierce connector for connecting things, committed to guiding a differentiated human experience that optimizes outcomes for everyone who's part of that healthcare delivery system, or maybe healthcare system at large. And while she has great pride in her work, her true north remains her family, her friends, and the relationships that she develops. Jennifer Krippner, welcome to Authentic Change with Mike Horn.
Hello, Mike. It's so lovely to be able to spend this time with you today. Thanks for this opportunity.
Well, beyond all those words that frame a lovely biography that tell your story, how would you describe your story?
Well, thank you. I've had, 25 years in the healthcare industry to be a leader, to be a team member. And I am really, truly passionate about relationships. It is about relationships. And I've really become obsessed with humanizing that experience for leaders, for physicians, nurses, and ultimately for the patients and families that we serve in our communities. And so truly about the relationships that we have with one another. And just really grateful for that opportunity through all of my experiences over those 25 years.
Interesting. Since I write and comment and develop a lot of content on authentic leadership, it seems to me that relationships are core to authentic leadership. And, the challenge for many leaders is how you begin to scale those relationships as you manage more and more people and organizations. So I often think it's linked to integrity, a topic that doesn't get discussed enough today in leadership. So I'm so curious about your experiences with authenticity and relationships and how that was important in all the work that you do and have done.
So true. And I love that you brought up integrity because that is definitely a core value, right? How do we act? How are we when we're at home, when we're at the grocery store, when we're, when nobody's looking? And then as a human-centered leader in healthcare, how does that play into our role? And how do we become and be authentic in everything that we do? It's so important. And I think being true and real to yourself first and foremost is really a genuine asset of being an authentic leader. And I think demonstrating that 24/7 can be a truly difficult thing to do, but something that we need to work on every single day. And I think that comes along with really focusing on having a well-being focus for ourselves. So how do we show up as a healthcare leader, as a genuine person, so that we can be authentic? Truly takes taking care of ourselves first. Not an easy thing to do.
I've worked with a number of physicians in a different part of the healthcare ecosystem, mostly MD, PhDs in pharmaceutical development. And very smart people, the needles in the haystack, people who extend their medical interests into science and really become, great specialists and the real passion to, I think, help and cure people. And so how did you find that in hospital environments? Where there's so much stress and there's a lot of mental health trauma that happens interacting with the public, people in difficult situations, people not on their best behavior, people in crisis. All of that has to reflect back into the healthcare delivery system somehow.
It sure does. And, we're so focused sometimes on healthcare as leaders, well as frontline team members as well, middle managers, to be focused on productivity, right? Our meetings that we have to attend to, all of our tasks, our checklists. And so sometimes being authentic or being genuine or being accountable, resilient, all those things kind of take a back seat because we have all of those measures that we have to get done, right? Sometimes those things in front of us have to take front and center. So it's hard to be our whole self when we go to work and have all of those demands placed on us. And so I think it takes the leader from the very top to really show that resilient, accountable, human-centered focus, to kind of walk the walk, talk the talk, and show that it is okay to show up and have some of those essential skills, like being present and being visible with your teams, so that you can be a person, be a human inside of your healthcare team, and show that vulnerability and invite some of those conversations to say it's okay, that we are showing up as our human self, our whole self, to the team. Because when we do that, we are going to get our best product, our best productivity, our best measures our outcomes are going to come forward when we are bringing our whole self to the team. So I think it's having a leader that understands that and can demonstrate and show themselves that way is when our teams can really be their best selves as well.
And you speak of that in reference to experiential learning. Jennifer, what does that mean? How does that all work in this regard?
Yeah. So at the Institute for Healthcare Excellence, we are all about experiential learning. It's great to get up and hear a speaker talk or listen to a session. But once you truly practice what those essential skills are in a setting that makes most sense to you, it's difficult to really put it into comprehension. But what does that mean to me? What's in it for me, right? The WIFM in that. What's in it for me? And how does the skill, let's say, of reflective listening, what does that really mean? It's great. Yep, people want to be listened to. It makes sense that you feel valued or heard, and it's respectful. But how do you truly listen? I always thought I was a great listener. In my early career, I always thought, my family told me I was a great listener. But when I truly had somebody come into my office during a one-on-one and say, you know what, Jennifer, you seem distracted. Your computer sounds go off, or you check your phone every once in a while. I really would love to have your attention during our next 20 minutes of this one-on-one meeting. And it wasn't until somebody really had the courage to tell me that I really said, okay, I understand what listening is. I need to be more present. And then when I was introduced to the Institute for Healthcare Excellence and became part of this team, really having that 1 to 2 minutes of uninterrupted conversation, and then being able to reflect back what I heard that person say and practice that in an environment that's safe, and that's being able to really demonstrate what is actually the skill of reflective listening and the impact that it can have on a relationship. I'm like, wow, I didn't really do that very well in my early years. And so, really, I think at the Institute, we're really able to help leaders practice that essential skill, put it into formulation, practice it, and then they can go back to work the next day and see the impact and see the difference that it can make. And that's just one tiny small example of an essential skill that really makes a difference in being an authentic leader.
I often work at coaching my clients who want to increase inclusion and engagement to say hello.
Right. Yes.
It's an old technology. I think what it does is it helps to acknowledge the other person in front of you rather than as an element of production, which I think is, to your earlier points about schedules and productivity measures. I mean, so much of it is about those measures and those quantifications. And I think they increase when you say hello.
Right. They do. And I think when you listen and when you can be present
Yeah.
a minute or two, you're going to be more efficient, more productive at the end, because you're not going to have to like go through your notes and like, what did that person say? Or, boy, I was really distracted doing X, Y, or Z. Now I have to go back and redo something, right? We're going to be more in tune to what actually is happening in front of us, which I think at the end of the day, we've got some proven statistics out there and research that say you are more productive, you are more efficient if you can spend that 1 to 2 minutes up front paying attention and being present with those in front of you. And I think we're really good at those technical skills of doing our checklist, doing all the things that we know. But when it really comes to building those relationship-centered skills, those human-centered skills, that's that cultural capacity. When you marry those two, I think everybody just begins to flourish. And we really get back to kind of the true meaning of why we went into healthcare, and that's really to serve one another.
I make a decent living, and I do that by listening. I listen really, really, really well. And then I typically offer my client, whether I usually do this closer, well, it just depends on when in the engagement, offer them one really good idea. And that may take 6 months. I mean, it's typical in coaching. But that is what defines in part, my client's success is my ability to listen really, really, really well.
And it's a true skill, isn't it? I mean, it takes time to really hone in on what those comments are, what those thoughts are, to really think about what is it that's saying, and how does that make you feel when you are able to listen and help them through that conversation. It's pretty powerful for both people.
Yes, I think it's, for me, it is part of the helping process. And I am honored to be in on that helping process. Going right back to healthcare now, we can have all kinds of different models about what we do, physician heal thyself versus, some other model or metaphor for wellness. And how receptive are your clients would be receptive, at least at the start they are usually, not always, but usually they're receptive at the start. How do you find clients for this work in effective healthcare? I mean, you are dealing also, I wanted to note this earlier, I mean, a very diverse group of individuals in healthcare. I mean, healthcare delivery systems are incredibly diverse. Age, gender, ethnicity, all kinds of visible and invisible differences in diversity.
Yes, we do. We work with every, leaders, frontline team members, different specialties, even. So you're bringing together definitely a diverse group of people. And, I think at the end of the day, they all want relationships and connections, right? We all want to be connected and have and understand what it's like to have those deeper connections with the people that we work with on a day-to-day basis. And I think the work that we do at the Institute is really about how do we work better as a team? How do we enhance the skills that we have as a team? And how can we truly nurture one another in a way that builds each other up so that when it comes to receiving those patients and families in our care, we are at our best. We're in a state of thriving as a team, regardless of our specialty, regardless of our gender, regardless of our, ethnic background. We are truly working together kind of in that optimal flow. And I think we have a human-centered leadership curriculum that we bring leaders through to really help them identify and develop the skills where they can help their team members deliver that optimal experience. And, it's really, tapping into the mastery of their team skills. And in order to do that, the leaders have to also be in that state of kind of their authentic self. And so it's really going back to the basics of why are you here as a healthcare leader? Why are your teams here? What is your purpose? How are you connected to it? And then what are the skills that you can enhance as an individual? But then also as a team, what are the team skills that we need? And then how does the organization support that? Because if you don't have an organization that supports that, you're not going to get the culture transformation that we aspire to.
And that is where I wanted to take our conversation. In many ways, we've been discussing this at the level of the individual. And you also discuss or describe or you talk about the Institute's work relative to cultures of thriving. How do you get from here to there?
Right. So what we like to do is come into an organization and we work with, like I said, the human-centered leadership aspect. So we bring the top level leadership. We always work with an organization as well with their physicians at the table because physicians are an integral part of the team. And if they're not part of the equation and not leading with this foundational aspect of the communication, the right language, and left out, the culture isn't going to transform. So we always need to have the physicians at the table. So you've got the leadership, the physicians, and then a representation of all other team members. So it's really a multidisciplinary team that we bring together. And then we have another core program that's really delivered to a set of people. It's a train the trainer model. So that we call it a slow IV infusion. It's kind of this slow infusion of skills every single month that their team is delivering over a longer period of time that gets at that culture transformation. So we equip a core group of people with a set of foundational skills really centered around presence and listening. How do we get the right information out from one another and from the patients and families so that we can deliver the right kind of care? How do we recognize and respond to the emotions that are in the room? And how do we help kind of deflate any tension or conflict? And then how do we wrap around all of that with appreciation and gratitude? And so there's really a core model that everybody gets access to these skills and to practice these skills in a way that it becomes kind of this foundational language that the organization has access to. And by training a core group of people every month over 12 to 18 months, you start to see this culture shift over, I guess it's about 6 or 9 months into the program. You start to see people behaving in different ways, starting to use these skills in a different way that really help them connect and work as a team that's really at that optimal performance that we like to see.
Thank you, Jennifer. And how can the current discussion about burnout and change initiatives be changed to one that centers around thriving and long-term performance?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? Burnout's been a topic for many, many, many years in healthcare. We saw a rise specifically after the pandemic, and something that we've been working on as part of the National Task Force for Humanity in Healthcare. We were the operating arm for that right up until the pandemic. We really wanted to see a shift from a focus on deficits, right? Because in healthcare, we're always focused on the sick or what's going wrong, what's the next thing that's bad that's going to happen. We wanted to shift the focus from deficit to one of a state of thriving. And so we've really been studying and working on states of thriving or teams that are working really well and focusing on positive emotions and focusing on things that are going really well. And when you do that, and our skills and our work and the core curriculum that we have within our programs focus on how do we help teams that are thriving support the other teams that maybe aren't. So let's put the spotlight and put the attention on the teams that are working well and doing well, or areas or processes that are going well. And when we focus on the strengths, right, we're going to get more of that. And so that's what our work has been doing, really focusing on creating that culture of thriving and resilience and just finding more ways to do more of that.
In finding more ways to do more of that, how can leaders encourage their teams to intentionally focus on creating a positive emotional environment?
Yeah. So we like to create kind of micro habits around positive emotions. There's, about 10 key positive emotions like gratitude or awe or inspiration or hope or pride. And there's things that you can do throughout your day to have your team experience those positive emotions. Things that I really like to focus on are like creating habits with your team around a check-in. You can start your morning in a huddle and say, is there anything keeping you from being your best today? Is there anything keeping you from being present? And just giving people, 5 or 10 seconds to say, what's your check-in for the day? And then you're able to really provide that ability to be present. You could end your shift with a gratitude moment. Say, what's one good thing that happened during our shift today? Something like that. So you're going to experience that gratitude moment there. Other things that you could do, there's different ways during your day to have access to those positive emotions. We like to say, small doses frequently throughout your day and getting access to those positive emotions can be really powerful. A lot of people wear badges in the hospital and perhaps they have a picture of their child on there. Just stopping for a moment and saying, oh, tell me about that picture. Where did you take it and why was it important for you to put that on your badge? You're accessing positive emotion because that person can describe something that they were proud of about that picture. You're making a connection and building a relationship with somebody. So lots of fun different ways to build those positive emotions with connecting with one another.
Trust, integrity, respect. I know that's part of the seal of the Institute for Healthcare Excellence. And Jennifer Krippner, I'm just wondering that what are the barriers that arise when an organization begins this work, and how can it overcome them?
Yeah. Lots of barriers, right, that we all like to say we have, such as time, right? We never have time for this kind of work. It's sometimes referred to as the soft skills. And so we like to say they're the essential skills. They're really the foundation from which we can build that trust, build that integrity and respect. And so helping the leaders understand that investing in your team investing in your leaders is really important to really build the best outcomes for your patients and families. And overall return on investment is incredible. We've seen huge change in every organization we've worked with on a decrease in burnout and increase in your thriving and resilience. We've seen quality metrics go up. We can share multiple grievances going down, total cost of care, everything that you can imagine. We've seen at organizations help track and measure what those are. And so happy to share with people if they're interested on different organizations' metrics. But time is usually the biggest one.
Yes, and people will be able to find out more, I'm sure, at healthcareexcellence.org. But just as we begin to wrap up, Jennifer Krippner, what I'm interested in is, could you identify, just following from our last conversation, one or two benefits that come from practicing patience, mindfulness, and gratitude? Just identify one or two benefits as a way of beginning to reflect on our conversation and send our audience off with these good thoughts. They'll certainly be able to find out more about you and the work of the Institute for Healthcare Excellence in the show notes. So I encourage everyone to visit the show notes as well. But what are these, one or two benefits that you might offer, Jennifer?
Sure. Thanks for asking that. I think, practicing mindfulness and presence is such the core and the foundation of really being your best self and bringing your authentic self right to your work and to your life. There's a statistic out there that 50% of all medical errors are a result of having a lack of mindfulness. And so super important that our healthcare providers bring a practice of mindfulness to work every single day. I think also being visible and using your listening skills and bringing your own stories helps create an open space for your teams. And I really think it helps foster a culture of psychological safety, which is super important in healthcare. I think prioritizing well-being for your team is important, and really encouraging that positive work environment and strengthening relationships is a great way to pave the way for, continuous improvement and building innovation into your work environment.
Well, Jennifer, thanks for all the work that you're leading at the Institute for Healthcare Excellence, where you're the Chief Experience Officer. Thank you for all the great work that you're doing with your clients and teams. And until the next episode of Authentic Change with Mike Horn, stay well.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Authentic Change podcast. I'm delighted that you've tuned in to listen. Please visit the show notes for links to topics discussed in today's podcast. To download a free ebook on authentic change and leadership and to subscribe to my newsletter, please visit mike-horn.com. Once again, mike-horne.com, mike-horn.com. Once again, thank you for listening to the Authentic Change podcast.